ZKU, Center for Arts and Urbanistics, which I'm here to represent, with our Ukrainian partners who are here, who were here yesterday, who are here today, who will be here tomorrow. And they have created a program to shed light onto yesterday the blind spots of Europeans in the conflict, and today we had intensive talks shedding light onto the blind spots of Documenta, and we're here today to shed some light onto more blind spots. And I'm super thankful for all the work that you've done, and I'll hand over to you and the program. Thanks for coming today.
Today it was a discussion in the format of documentary theater, and this theater has structure, some structure with chairs. You will see it, and in one moment I will propose you to join us. And please join us when I will do it. That's all. Topic, you mean our discussion? You maybe.
Hi, I'm Jana Perka. I'm the founder of Art-платформа in Mariupol, the city that doesn't exist anymore. And the topic will be identity and freedom.
Hello, my name is Maxim. I'm a filmmaker, a director and a producer. I live in Kiev now. I was born in Odessa, Ukraine. Now I live in Kiev.
I'm Larissa Benedictova, and I'm choreographer, curator, and researcher. And this project is a project of Dance Laboratorium, artistic group, and I live in Kiev.
Hello, my name is Inga Pelevchuk. I'm originally from Kiev, Ukraine. I'm a journalist and documentary filmmaker, and I live in Berlin now for 14 years.
My name is Mariana. I live in Kiev. I'm from Ukraine. I'm a journalist.
And now we will write topics on these sheets of paper.
You want me to read them? Okay. All of them? Okay, I will start reading them. crucial for Ukrainian identity. Can identity be based on whole? What kind of identity could Russians represent at Documenta 2022? It is very scary to be completely free. Coming out in Ukraine, can queers be patriots? Ukrainian revolution of dignity as identity. Our tradition is freedom. My street, my hood, my city, my country, are they the same?
Maybe just a short explanation for everybody. This thesis, like these short topics, we thought about before, and they are quite personal. Like this are questions which interest us as Ukrainians.
And we didn't share it before. We just. Is freedom in Russia possible? My street, my hood, my city, my country, are they the same? I think I've faced twice, I faced such a crazy, fucked up change in my perception of home, hood, city, street, whatever, and to my connection to it, because I had to move from Donetsk in 2014 because I was like an activist and I was wanted in our pro-Russian opponents. And then I settled down in Mariupol and I lost my home second time. And for me, my street, my hood, my city, my country is not the same. Well, I think that it's not the same for everyone at all, because you change and everything around you changes gradually or rapidly, but the way it changed for me, it was not normal. It was just so crazy that it was like a shock that I'm still processing. And some friends of mine are also were living in Mariupol, but relocated from Donetsk. And my street is not the same. I just showed our friend what happened to my apartment, and it's totally not the same. It's smashed, it's just exterminated. So my street, my hood, my city, my country, they are not the same. Moreover, I don't have them anymore. I cannot be attached to to my home, to the place I felt like home. First in Donetsk, then in Mariupol, because when you are too attached, it's too painful. You will not stop this pain. So I just detached. And now I'm looking for new street, new hood, new city, and new country. And we are making it. So, are they the same?
And if you lose something, can it still be a part of your identity?
Oh yeah, sure. You know, I left from both homes, like very quickly, didn't think that I will live forever. It had to be like for a week. So I didn't take with me many stuff that will be somehow, I don't know, memorable stuff apart from keys. But I still have this identity, and both Donetsk and Mariupol, you know what? First, I didn't change my registration in passport. In Ukraine, you need this registration. and I made myself like many problems because Donetskers, like IDPs, they were like discriminated. Like, it was very hard for us to do just many things in Ukraine, but it was a deliberate decision. And then, now when all of the country, like half of Ukraine, is having these IDP papers because they had to relocate, I didn't get it because I already have one from 2014, and it's from Donetsk to Mariupol. So, and I keep them, and I don't want to, to change it, and I feel this is a part of my identity.
And I'm just asking myself, because I left Kiev long time ago, 14 years, and still I feel very much it is a part of my identity because I reconnected with the city again and again and again and came back. So I'm just thinking, how do you connect to Donetsk?
It's something that,
for example,
that is visit. Only in memories, only in my emotions, only. And I don't want to go there. I mean, I will be so terrified when I see what's there now. The same goes for Mariupol.
And how much your identity is based now on place, and how much is it based on displacement then?
Well, I think, it's on displacement because I started feeling this identity of Donetsk only when we erased this protest, but it was like 3 months, and then I felt it more and more and more. The same goes for Mariupol, but I was already had some experience, and I already felt. Well, that we lost something very valuable, and now it's part of me.
So, part of you is what you lost, or part of you is the loss itself, and what is the balance between them? Because I actually, for example, I just left my city, Odessa, on the way, maybe not because of war, obviously, unfortunately. I just went to study, and only when I was leaving, only when I was leaving, I felt this identity much more.
So you have double identity as well, Odessa?
Probably, yeah, I would say, when it comes to this kind of identity. No, I mean, probably it's much more Kiev, but then at the time I was leaving, I would say that the loss right now already identifying myself actually more with
the loss
Kiev.
of Odessa?
No. When I was leaving back then, I was a teenager, and all my friends were there. I was sorry to leave. And then right now, I already understand that this was more the loss as part of me than that place actually now.
I think this is something that you would not understand, and I don't want you to understand what this loss, this reason of loss, this what you actually lost. It has such a different meaning, and many people I talk with, they say, now I understand. Now I understand you.
What is more powerful, or what is the relation between your identity, if existent, as Ukrainian, and your identity, if you're told it's existent, as a person from Donetsk, and your identity as person from Mariupol? What are the connections and relations between all those identities, which is stronger, and which appeared at what time?
First, I'm Ukrainian. Second, I'm Mariupol. Third, I'm Donetsk.
When did you realize that you were Ukrainian?
It was March 2014. I started realizing it during the winter, during my down, but I felt it, like really felt it, when our rallies were attacked, when, when this Gubayev came like this.
By asking, because I'm not displaced, but I've really made a statement for myself that I realized myself as a citizen of Ukraine, also in 2014, and it was even not before. I was not thinking of it before, and I was in Switzerland for 3 months in the residency, and we had a big conversation. And then I just realized I can say I'm a citizen of Ukraine. And my question is to you, do you think that or why do you think we need this external force of such a terrible scale to realize we're Ukrainians?
I don't think we need it. I would rather, I don't know, what would I prefer if there was a choice to have this brutal external force and that will boost our identity as Ukrainian, or no war, nothing, and we're just like we was in 2010, like not thinking about Ukraine, being Ukrainian, you know what I mean? If there would be a chance to choose, live it like now, or there is no war, no one attacks us, but we don't feel this Ukrainian identity, just like we never thought about it, I don't know what I would choose, you know? I think that the more the force is, the more we feel it. But the good question is, why couldn't we do that before? Yeah, that's what I asked myself. Why do we need this shit to happen? And I don't know. What do you think? Why do we need external force?
I think this is somehow a natural danger thing, something psychological, because I hear a lot in Germany something like, oh, if our country would be attacked, I would just go out, I wouldn't go fighting. And I think people just can't relate, because if you didn't have this experience of being attacked, you can't understand the necessity of fighting for yourself and for your country. And this is also of who you are. I think most people in Germany, for example, wouldn't say they view themselves as Germans in the first case, meaning.
But also, during this residency in 2014, we interviewed some Swiss artists. And not only artists, just Swiss people, like a lot. And just by coincidence, everyone started, like there was a proposal to introduce yourself, and everyone started like, hello, I'm Swiss.
Okay, maybe it's another story for Switzerland. I can just assume why it's the way I was telling in Germany, because national identity has discredited itself during the World War II. It's connected to horrible crimes, and it's very hard to think it in a positive way. I think actually what is happening now with Ukraine and some empathy we actually gain for Ukrainian fight is also something very new for Germany. To see in the national fight something emancipative is something new for Germany. Maybe, yeah.
I generalize a bit, and excuse me if this doesn't sound completely polite or politically correct. But from what you say, it seems that German way of self-identification is through negation. So it's negative identity.
No, it's rather like what I experienced living in Germany. It's rather about being a human being from some city or some village. Like people have local identities, people connect to their cities, people connect themselves as queers, as heteros, as lesbian, gays, or like sexual identity or gender identity is rather like a point where people can connect on based on it, but in terms of national identity, I mean, maybe somewhere, yeah, it's a neglection of it, but it's just somehow rather not to be in the middle of the identity issues.
Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity as identity. I remember that feeling on Maidan very precisely, this thing that the thing that I felt myself some piece, a paragraph or a sentence in a history book that I'm taking, in a history book that I'm taking part in some historical event, and I was also scared that with some time gone by, I would feel it as a less and less part, not like as a sentence, but as a letter or as a point, or I don't know. And eventually it turned out like that, but at the same time I was really surprised by the same, by that same feeling, because at that moment I realized that before that I lived with the feeling that the history has stopped, it has ended. Right now it's the present only, and history is a very different thing. And that was actually before, because of probably I already identified myself as Ukrainian for quite a long period of time, and it was just very natural for me, and not like for like a lot of people. For Diana has mentioned before that she realized herself as a Ukrainian in March 2014. Like generally, I always realized myself as a Ukrainian, as a part of this country which has some kind of very certain borders, some kind of very certain people living in, and I just started thinking back then that it's because of its history, and it's because of like my family has brought this feeling for me actually, and my grandmother, who was a history teacher at the university, back then she would teach the history of Ukrainians.
When I was 16, I took my passport, Soviet passport, in which it was point number 5, maybe you know, it was about
Rationality.
And as a child, I could choose this nationality between nationalities of my parents. And I choose Ukrainian, and it was really very strange because it was in Siberia, and everybody would like to be Russians, and it's so strange to choose Ukrainian. everybody was shocking of it. And actually, I didn't know why I did it. And but when Maidan started in 2014, I actually understood what it was. It's about history, you know. Yeah, and what do you think? What is the problem with Russians in this topic of history? I mean, what do you think?
You mean with Russian identity or
with
choosing,
Russian
with
people?
choice?
With Russian people, I mean, why it's no history there at all?
Right now, I mean, no, there is like, in my opinion, in my thought, what I see, it's about like dominating history for them. And if we speak like on behalf of Ukrainians, and if we speak like
yes, but it's not about real history. It's about some fake history. Now you tell, as I understand.
it's about you know, it's about dominating the history and naming one things another, naming like one naming a union, naming and like occupation a union, for example, or something like that. But that's what I think it is. It's like the historical continuity that lasts for a very long time, but doesn't name itself or somehow names itself in a very like hybrid way, and not stating and articulating its like oppressive and expensive policy anymore. And for example, like claiming successorship of some what they call greatness, what they call this, not forgetting about oppression and crimes and collective responsibility, what was there, and what came with this successorship and heritage.
Can queers be patriots? I mean, for me, there is a simple answer to this question, and this is what the Ukrainian experience is about now. Yes, queers can be patriot, queers can love and defend their country. We have trans people, we have lesbians, we have gay people fighting in the Ukrainian army right now, in special battalion and all around the army. But I'm also asking myself, what is it this word is about, patriot? Because I think if you're saying patriot in Ukraine, it sounds very positive. When I'm saying patriot in Germany, it sounds a bit bitter. So this is an interesting thing I also rather hear in Germany, that queers are somehow opposing the system, so why would they be for their state? So I think this is what the thought, why for some people they are like opposite things.
Also, for example, after understanding that these people and, for example, their families, that their close ones that think and identify themselves as patriots of their countries and contribute something, but don't receive the same recognition, don't receive the same treatment in their countries. In each country it is different, but for example, in our country, it's more or less okay, but these people, for example, don't have their partners, or for example, I have, I don't know, my partner, or whom he's fighting at the front line, and I'm like, of course, worrying and thinking what to do in one or another case, and what could I do, and I could do nothing actually if like something bad happens, or for example he's in captivity. How can I try contacting the authorities or officials to start looking for him, or for example, or what else? So I was thinking, what is this patriotism then? Should it be mutual, or is it fair enough when it's like one-sided, or how is it mutual in our case? How is it mutual in another countries? What I started thinking, for example, in countries where queers are much more oppressed, can they be patriots there? Would they go and defend their countries? That's what I started thinking about at this point.
You made the movie about LGBT military in Ukraine, right?
Yes.
And when they appeared, we started talking about it, we screened it in Jew, in Mariupol, and we saw them. That's when I understood that I think something is going to change in our perception of this left-right, of this, radicalization and so on, because it was them who actually, I think, unite our. Well, it's something that we cannot. No one will say now, like, what are they doing? This, like,
Yes.
perverts. Let them go and fight.
It's
They are
true,
fighting.
actually. I think I agree that everything that is happening to us, to our country, and to our people, to our close ones, and to our society in general now, is only a proof that all these definitions, they need real reconsideration, just because of this, how we see how the information and the truth is like deformed, disfigured, and used also as a weapon. And when we see all these fakeness being a tool of an aggression, it's just about probably reconsideration of these definitions and how we define ourselves, first of all, probably these definitions towards ourselves, and finding touching points with other peoples through this reconsideration.
Because whenever anything was screened into, like anything related to queer, LGBTQ, something like that, we were attacked, and our space was attacked. But when we screened to this movie, your movie, we were not. No one came.
Now I propose to you to write down. Now I propose to you to write down your topics, which you would like to propose to us.
Related to identity and freedom.
Identity and freedom. No? Okay.
want us to propose the topic for us.
It is very scary to be completely free. That's a lot for me about a choice. Because freedom for me probably is about having this possibility to make a choice, and I don't know, making a choice is always scary. I don't know, even maybe it's just because I'm this, how you call it in English, Libra. They say those who believe in astrology is like hard for Libras to make decisions, but I think, yeah, making a choice is always scary, and that is about freedom, and that is okay, that being free is scary, but at the same time, for example, having thinking about some particular and personal examples of this, I would, and I was actually a bit afraid to hold my partner's hand, if it's a guy, if it's a man, in the streets of Kiev or another citizen towns in Odessa. But at the same time, for example, I met one guy here in Germany. I was in Berlin a few days ago, and we would just hold hands on the streets, and I would feel still a bit scared. And I was thinking, why is that? It's kind of safe and all the stuff. And then I understood it's just because I know about this very possibility of an attack, an aggression towards this particular simple expression of small freedom or something. And this possibility is that's always, I think, a confirmation of this thing. Freedom is always something that is conditional. It can be attacked, it can be taken away. So there is always this possibility. So I think, yes, it's scary to be completely free, because you always have the possibility of losing this freedom.
Do you consider yourself objects or agents of decolonization? It's a little bit funny because now I read a lot of books, texts about Soviet history and about secret service of Soviet Union, ЧК, KGB, and the most common thing in these stories about Soviet secret service, it's if you must have some agreement with Chekist, with this secret service. You could be only object of this, of their work, or their agent. Object and agent. But here it's about decolonization, and I think this word actually not adequate for our situation. Not relevant. Thank you very much. This word is not relevant for our situation, our war, because Ukraine actually wasn't a colony of Russia. Ukraine was a part of Soviet Union, and Ukraine was actually agent of, one of 4 agents who created Soviet Union. If you don't know, maybe it's new information for you. I don't know. Yeah, and this responsibility for this creating of this empire of evil. Actually, I think this war is about this responsibility. Ukrainians have to take this responsibility, because now Ukraine would like to go out, to exit this imperial evil. But I think maybe we cannot exit before we will take responsibility for this creating.
But at the same time, it was our identity who had been under this oppression. It was our language that was somehow pushed out all this time, all these centuries, by Valuev's circular or Emsk decree, or all other decrees of Catherine and next monarchs to push out the Ukrainian language and the Ukrainian culture and the Ukrainian narrative out of official
I think that we cannot go in these centuries, in this so long ago. We cannot go so long ago.
I think we should, because that's the historical continuity I was talking about.
We have this problem now, just now, and we cannot now discuss about centuries ago. Now we have problem with the Soviet Union. Are you agree?
We are having a problem with a state that is a successorship of both Russian Empire and Soviet Union, and who use this successorship as a justification of their aggression towards us, and by conquering our land, our people, taking away our people, our children, and eliminating our identity, they claim that they restore the historical justice, and that's why our historical continuity, the sustainability of our stateness, which was also, I was saying, it was eliminated by Catherine. The Zaporizhzhia siege was it was like a state formation, it was a democracy, Hetmanshina,
but I think we have to work with this history step by step, from the closest to us. We have to make this step in this nearest past.
Yes, of course, and I agree that we should also see the responsibility that we have in that process, and starting from the latest one, from the Soviet Union, for
Yes,
example.
and when we go through this problem, we can go to
I would also call it a
no?
decolonization also because, for example, what Soviet Union was doing, to us is one thing, the collectivization, the famine, then executed Renaissance and like the stops of the Ukrainization processes, but also what they were doing to the nations of Far East, Far North, who are, for example, still the parts of Russian Federation, the successor of Soviet Union, and who are still very oppressed, and who, as we see now, for example, are the ones who are mostly, for example, sent to die on our land. That's what I mean, also calling it decolonization, calling and sharing the responsibility for that, of course, too, and sharing that everything is.
We cannot share it because we have not this, partner for sharing.
If you ask me who you are, maybe some one day and a bit someone another day, I may be someone with a view of you and someone else another person. Okay, I don't quite get it, but I think it's about that you can be yet identify yourself another day in another way than today. Is the need to bind myself to an identity a good indicator of crisis? Can there be a future without such need? For me, when I'm thinking biographically, identity in a very strong way is definitely an identification of crisis. It was, for example, with my sexual orientation, very much like this. When I discovered that I am attracted to women, it was super important for me to understand myself as a lesbian and to be seen as a lesbian by the others. I was dressing myself in a certain way, behaving myself in a certain way, and it was really important part of it. Now, many years ago, after this living in a natural way as a woman who is in love with other women, I feel it so natural that it actually doesn't matter to me at all if somebody considers me as lesbian or as bi or as queer or somehow, and this feels very revealing and very free and very nice not to be so much connected to this identity. And something, maybe I will somehow support this idea that one day when Ukrainians wouldn't be under attack constantly and not feel the necessity, going with a flag through the streets as we've done yesterday. Diana went through the streets of Kassel with the Ukrainian flag from two with feminist sign, and without other people, saw other people like reacting to this. It was a very nice feeling because they supported us and they told us Slava Ukraini or something like this. So in this crisis moment, in the moment of fear of losing the identity, it strengthens you to have it. But I think that, I hope actually, that one day there will be no need to have, your flag every day with you, and it would get something natural just to be Ukrainian and not having this need to prove it and to have the support of your surroundings. But this is maybe just possible when the war is won by Ukraine.
And now, please join us who would like to go here and talk with us or talk alone, some monologue. And please go here questions, comments? Yeah.
Isn't it also a fight for values that Russia lacks? I don't know what is, it's like pro-democratic or pro-democratic, anti-imperialist, pro-LGBT, freedom of speech. Then the word patriot totally changes the meaning. It's definitely fight for the values that Russia lacks, and actually, in my opinion, praising and following these values and proving the sustainability and the efficiency of these values was one of the reasons of the aggression towards us. And of course, it definitely changes the word patriot, and as we stated already before, that patriotism is always cool when it's first of all you are under attack. It's understandable. It's natural.
Don't you think that it's not the fight for the rights that Russia lacks, but it's the fight for the rights I want to have, we want to have? So, talking so much about decolonization, I think, like, identifying ourselves through what Russia lacks is but colonial.
Yes, that's what I was actually trying to continue with. That, for example, it's all about that what I was saying. When you are more or less okay, and when you more or less are able to combine your national identity and with other identities or with other values you would like to follow as one or another person, then it's also organic and natural. It's also kind of even easy to become a patriot or to be a patriot. But that's what I was thinking. It's like we should keep like fighting, of course, for our values inside our society first, and for them and for keeping them. Even like even without Russians, we should be. I mean, when we win and Russia will step back from our lands and leave our people alone, we should keep praising and fighting for these values, I think, and that would still be a patriotism, a Ukrainian patriotism. Everywhere. For me, probably
Okay, hot topic. Is Ukrainian language crucial for Ukrainian identity? I was born in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, in a Russian-speaking family, and I learned Ukrainian in the kindergarten, but I went there quite late, like actually 1 year before the school. So my Ukrainian was quite fresh when I went to the school, and everything was Ukrainian. And I had no problem at that age with it at all. I learned Ukrainian. I consider when I'm asked, what's your mother tongue? I mean, mother tongue is Russian, but my first language is Russian, my second language is Ukrainian. Or now there are actually switching somehow, because now I feel the need to talk more in Ukrainian. I don't want to talk in Russian to other people on the streets. I don't want to talk in Russian to Ukrainians because they understand Ukrainian and I can connect in that way. But still, if I hear other people, other Ukrainians talking Russian, I have no doubt in their, Ukrainian identity, because Ukraine is a multilingual, or at least bilingual country. And for me, maybe understanding and that you can use Ukrainian is a part of Ukrainian identity, but it's not a must for me that the person speaks in every situation in Ukrainian to consider him or her to be Ukrainian.
Hi. I would like to continue on this question. As a not Ukrainians, I think that Ukrainian language is quite important for the Ukrainians' future. I come from neighbor country with Ukraine, from Belarus, and especially now I see the importance to speaking your own country. We have a lot of examples in the history. For example, in the country who really supports so much Ukraine, and it's a great example that Polish people from generation of our parents, I think we have similar age, can understand Russian a little bit, but they don't really use it. And you see how this transformation, especially after Solidarnosty time, after this first part of Solidarnosty, after this romantic idea to be free in a peaceful way, changed. And beginning of 90s was, I had no idea that people in Poland can speak Russians, and we see the consequence. We see the transformation of the society. In my own country, about 10% of population speak in their own country. If I'm speaking Belarusian because going on the street right now and speak my own country, my country's language, at least I will be arrested. At least I will be made as a nationalistic, dangerous guy who have to get 2 or 3 years of prison to understand what is wrong in me. And of my experience, of my perspective, I think it's quite important for Ukrainian, from my Belarusian perspective, to speak their language.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. I also think it's very important. The only thing that makes me a bit pain, I don't like language is something that has to be free. It's just my feeling. It's nothing that I can, undermine with some historical facts or something.
And we actually bilingual people become,
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful when people can connect in this language without, feeling like, oh, there will be like other people looking at them, oh, you are not Ukrainian enough if you're not talking Ukrainian. So I would love this process to go on in a free way.
And to continue the topic with the Belarusian language and the Belarus and Ukrainian languages being crucial for maintaining for the survival of our national identities and for their resilience. It's really. I watched footage. I watched cuts of the film of our common friend, I think, also a filmmaker, and I was really, first of all, surprised that, for example, your military oath is in Russian. I was really surprised in it, and like a lot of the official and that was when I realized, that's when I realized the, like
I
how...
have a statement. First, you speak Russian, then the Russians come to liberate you.
That's true. And at the same time, yeah, I understood how deeply I don't know how to say, the occupation, the appropriation was there in Belarus, for example, and that a lot of things that you should identify, or for example, if I'm not mistaken, your Independence Day is like the biggest day that is celebrated is when you became free from German occupation, not the independence from Soviet Union, right? That was really, I think, I saw how these actual tools that actually do form the identity, how they are appropriated and how this appropriation eventually works. And now, for example, when we speak to each other, you speak Belarusian and I speak Ukrainian and we understand each other, I just thought it's, this sustainability is the thing that will definitely help building another narrative, this anti-imperialistic, but at the same time having this tool of I don't know, of international communication, this Russian language. It was it's right now also a big question. For example, a lot of people here in Germany, even today, Jan, you right, asked, is it still who speak Russian? Yeah, they keep asking, is it okay that I speak Russian to you? And I don't know. For me, it's still okay. And besides, I try to speak Ukrainian much more. I used to speak both, and I'm also from Odessa, you know, and all this stuff. But how I used to speak both.
I completely agree that Ukrainian language now is crucial for not actually for identity. It's crucial for safety life. I mean, from very beginning of this invasion, this phase of war, it was my paranoia that if many people will speak Russian, Russians will come to this place, not to places with Ukrainian language. It's crazy ideas, but still, what we see in Ukraine, we see destroyed towns and cities with mostly Russian-speaking people, actually.
I just want to also add regarding the Ukraine, it's a privilege that you have right now, because I had a feeling that Ukrainian society don't have to defend Ukrainian language. And for me as Belarusian, it's a privilege not to defend your language.
Is something you gave yourself a privilege.
One moment. I'm about rules. You have to choose between us and we cannot speak three of us. You have to choose because you have to choose between.
Okay, maybe I have to have a conversation with you. Sorry. Again, too late.
Thank you
Sorry.
very much. Yeah, you told something.
Yeah, as for us, for Belarusian, it's really a privilege. To be honest, it's really a privilege that you have your education in, for example, you have kindergarten in Ukrainians, you have university in Ukrainians, you have school in Ukrainians. These 30 years of
something you gained yourself is a privilege. Is something that you was, I don't know. We were like, it was kind of the. I don't think it's something that has been given. It was like our people who wanted to, like, of course it was difficult and tricky and not that simple, but all this stuff. Yes, our officials did that. After the collapse of Soviet Union, we had more Ukrainian schools and Ukrainian kindergartens and Ukrainian in the public space. Not that enough, as we see, and now it's more and more. And people find themselves a refuge in and people find salvation and therapeutical to start using Ukrainian. But before, it's like it's a consequence of that there was an immediate demand for that, and that demand was still somehow demand from the people, demand from the population for that, and
I'm not totally agree with you that it was our demand. I was first year. My school, my first class was the first school in Ukraine. It was 1995 when Ukrainian schools appeared in Ukraine. So I'm not sure it was demand. It was a political decision. Yes, and it was very conscious decision, and I'm totally agree with that. But we have this chance, really, back then.
Yeah, but that policy is a consequence of
understanding. Yes.
Of understanding, and I wouldn't name the authorities of Ukraine back in 1995 very pro-Ukrainian, very nationalistic, very anti-Russian. I wouldn't call them. Who was it? It was still Kravchuk or Kuchma?
Kravchuk.
Okay, whatever. But somewhere in between. But yeah, I would say that there was this movement of all our dissidents and all the people who kept the Ukrainian-speaking culture alive, and people who would just keep speaking Ukrainian somehow, and they were after that it was this movement, revolution on the granite, how you call it, granite? Marble?
First
no.
revolution.
Yeah, the revolution which actually somehow was also led to independence of Ukraine. It was it had a very clear demand of more Ukrainian presence, sustainability in terms of language too, and that's what I was asking. Is something you gained yourself a privilege, or I don't know? I would agree that we had this privilege for a long time, and it contributed us, and it became some kind of an advantage, but I don't know.
Well, so the very difference between those kind of sides here, that I totally understand why in Belarus they perceive it like a privilege speaking in their own language because they can't.
Now yes.
And they didn't, they still didn't come, they didn't come. Sorry for my English, I'm a little bit nervous. But I'm trying to say that they couldn't.
Okay, I also would like to turn to, in Ukraine we have, in the mapping of Ukraine, we have misunderstanding of perceiving of some regions as Russian-speaking regions. For example, east of Ukraine and south of Ukraine, they form a southeast Russian-speaking region. But it's not true. In Ukraine, there is difference in language practices between the population of big cities and smaller cities and rural areas. And if we look at the MAPA project, it's an online project of mapping of Ukraine And among other things is language practices. We can see that in rural and small city Ukraine there is equal the amount of people speaking Ukrainian and Russian is equal. So even in these regions that are considered Russian-speaking, they are actually bilingual, and keeping this bilinguality is important. On the other hand, Ukrainian language is underrepresented language. And why? Why is it underrepresented? It's underrepresented for Russians, first of all. This is the problem of closed languages. The problem when, for example, we have such a word as barbarians. How it where it comes from? They said how Greeks would call people who spoke language they didn't understand. So they were barbarian. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It takes a long time, but to tell something sometimes takes time. What is my point? Ukrainian and Russian languages, they are both Slavic languages. They're closed languages. And what I have a part of I have multi-ethnic family, and part of my family are Russians, and for them it's a problem to perceive Ukrainian language as language because for them they perceive it as a language of uneducated people. Because for them it's like some misspelling of Russian language. And coming back to what was said previously, yes, this is important to represent Ukrainian language in Ukrainian country. Thank you.
I come from Donetsk. I was born in Donetsk. I lived there for a long time. I was born in Russian-speaking family. My dad is Latvian, my mom is Russian, so we were speaking Russian. Everyone spoke Russian. Donetsk, all over it was Russian-speaking. In 2014, I didn't switch to Ukrainian, but I started trying to learn it. I don't know, like maybe 4 years ago, I just switched to Ukrainian in like social media everywhere. It got more and more, I was like more and more learning it, then wanted to speak Ukrainian and so on. And now, after February, I try to speak it everywhere, to write messages. I don't know why we write messages, like it's just texting, you know. Private correspondence. So what I was talking about parents. Yeah, I also have parents who were living in Donetsk for a long time. My dad was living in Donetsk till this spring. He never spoke Ukrainian, he never understood it. He was always learning Russian. And finally, they got evacuated from Donetsk to Mariupol, and all he came to Mariupol and he died. So it's not the point. The point is that he started speaking Ukrainian. So I think I was sure he will never ever speak Ukrainian. So,
I will break.
It is crucial, yes.
We will finish our show. And we have here some questions with possibility to answer yes or no. And again, I invite you to ask, just to answer these questions, yes or no, in this way. Sure. here it will be no, no, here no, and here yes. And we will do it with our
Legs.
feet.
Feet. Yeah.
Feet, legs. Yes, and also please come to us. Yeah, please come.
Patience, patience.
Yes, but come. And once more, if it's no, you go there, and if it's yes,
Maybe also explain or like now.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Да.
possible.
Can a strong national identity block international solidarity? Can a strong national identity block international solidarity? It's no? No? Yes.
No, no, no. Oh, wow. I'm sorry.
But if you say it can happen sometimes, then it's a yes. It can. It's a yes.
You need to decide. We will wait.
Yeah, we will wait.
Can identity be based on home? Can identity be based on home? Home. 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 Дим.
Yes. Да. Не так, не.
No? Yes. No? Yes. You can read actually. Is freedom in Russia possible? Impossible.
You could live out in Russia. It's really possible.
Oh yeah.
If it is, it's possible in Russia.
This is a hard part, yeah, but we need to decide.
You can speak about Russians when they want. You can follow right.
I'm sorry, are you no or yes?
I'm sorry, but it's
We will wait.
We will wait for you.
no, it's a question because it's many parts.
I know.
So in this sense, maybe if you can see the different parts, maybe you can be also.
Just your choice.
Can freedom be obtained painlessly? Can freedom be obtained painlessly? Obtained, отримана.
Is this a general question or is it about the war?
General, I think.
It is how you perceive it. It's up to you.
I think I was born, I feel like I was born in freedom, so it wasn't anything for me. My mother made me.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Do you think all of Ukraine will be free again?
Think or hope. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Very much.